first. Recording in progress. Share screen. And there we go. Share. Play. Oh, we seem to have succeeded. So I'm going to whip through this because I am very conscious of the time, and this is not about me, although Julie Jackson would say it's always about me. This is about all of you lovely people that we've come to know over the years. Some of you are new to us and some have been around since the very start. This is my latest favorite subject, and just listening to you guys talking, there's so many of you that have reinvented yourselves. I've got a book in my head which is about reinvention, and I'll talk a bit about it as I go through, but not everybody knows me as well as some of you do. So this is me in a previous life. The little person on the left, that's me in my father's specials uniform in Birmingham. Obviously, it's not his whole uniform because he didn't wear a knitted jumper and a kilt. But that perhaps might give some of you the idea that I'd always wanted to be a police officer, but that's not the case. That was just one of those photos that you get and keep. It's got Chief Superintendent Jill Don on the bottom because somebody used it for a do I had and had it blown up and done stuff like that. But I did find myself in the police after numerous jobs, and I was very fortunate. I had a fabulous career, and I did finish as a chief superintendent, which is quite good for a girl, even in those days. I joined the police in 1981, so a very long time ago. And I was also very fortunate to have the privilege of being awarded an MBE from Her Majesty the Queen. So that's Mr. Smith and the girls. They hate that photo so much, mainly because they're 23 now. It's not their best look. But so that's just a little bit about my previous life. And I worked in the police for 30 years. And I retired in June 2011. The rules have changed a little bit now, but in those days, you worked for 30 years. They gave you a very good pension, particularly the further up the ranks that you went, and you retired. And that all sounds amazing. I was 54 at the time, so that of course sounds amazing. And I remember in the police, lots of guys that I'd worked with retiring before me and immediately coming straight back into the police force as members of police staff. And I said, oh God, somebody shoot me if I'm ever going to come back. Not because I didn't love it. I absolutely loved it. But I thought there must be other things. And I'd worked full time all my girls' lives. And they were 13. So I thought this is going to be a great opportunity to be a full-time mum. Well, Sarah, I'm sure you are absolutely amazing at that, but it's not one of my greatest strengths. Mr. Smith, my present husband, is my third husband. He's a much better cook than I am. And so it didn't take very long for the girls to say, are you sure you want to be doing this? Isn't there something else that you want to do? And that got me thinking. So after a few months, I had a bit of a thought about what can I do? What can I do now? And I put some bullet points there about what I felt would be important if I was going to be doing something else. I'd love the police force, but there aren't many jobs out in the real world where you go around kicking the doors in. That was one of the most exciting bits, kicking doors in and nicking bad guys. But the other thing that I had done was I'd headed up a whole host of work around women's development. And we had actually, through the creation of a women's network and for running a program called Springboard, changed the profile of women in the police force. Obviously now we've moved on quite a lot. It's very different. The head of the Met, unfortunately, he's not had always the best press, Cressida Dick. You know, for women to be in those senior positions, it's quite common, it's accepted. But when I was in the police, that wasn't the case. And the thing that I missed most was the support of all those women. We changed the profile of senior officers from 8% to 25%. There were now 25% more women in senior positions in the police than in police staff. And that's what I loved. So I thought about, if you're going to do something else, then you've got to have a real passion. There's all sorts of things that we can all do because women are amazing at turning their hands at anything. But I think to make it successful, there has to be a passion. And you all talk at different times about passion that you have for the work that you do. I think to start with, a level of knowledge is help, because if anything, it builds that confidence, which is the bottom bullet point there. But for me, it was also about doing something different. It wasn't about kicking doors in, obviously. It was about doing something different. And it was about learning new skills. And I was really looking forward to just finding different skills, something else that I could do. So that was really important to me. So I did. I learned some skills and I did some things different. So many of you I know have read my book, Celebrate Success. That's a lovely cover that the lovely Bloss has done for me. How to be a successful working mum without the guilt. I knew about that. I'd worked full-time all my girls' life. I've missed more sports events, more parents' evenings than you can shake a stick at. But there was no point in me feeling guilty about it. And I knew lots of women who spent so much time. When they're at work, they felt guilty about being at work. And wanted to be home with the children. And when they were home with the children, they were thinking about work and trying to do work at the same time. And I know it's still a real challenge. So I wrote that book. Mr. Smith had written a book about HR. He said, it's really easy. You can publish your own book. Is it? Well, it is actually. So that was a skill I learned. And I just enjoyed so much the process of writing, to the point where the next thing I knew, after say 10 o'clock in the morning, when I'd sit down and write, the girls would be stood behind me at 4 o'clock saying, is there any tea ready? Because I just got so absorbed in jotting this down. It's a personal development book. It's, I think, quite humorous. There's stories about the girls, Drama and Crisis. Many of you have met Drama and Crisis. It's a story about us, our life, me as a single mum for 7 years with them, working quite hard as a quite high profile, busy job. And having a bit of fun, but also trying to help women. So the title, which they cringe at still, is around the various chapters in the book. So the first chapter is confidence and self-esteem. And every letter means something. The 8 is 8 steps to improve your potential. So that was my book. And I absolutely love the process. I self-published it. I went down to a bookshop in Bridport and insisted, beat this poor man verbally until he let me have a book launch, because I found out it's quite difficult to get book launches. And I'd done it all myself, but I had the opportunity to sit there, put books in the window and do some signings. And that was really great fun. And as I say, learning new things. And the other one, of course, is the podcast. I set up the Successful Women podcast show in 2016. Again, my husband and I have always listened to podcasts. 5 years ago, they weren't as common as they are now. Very big in America, and the majority of my listeners are in America. And I did what the bit that I love most is listening to other women tell their stories, listening to other women explain how they've achieved success. And I think it's important to remember that success for some people is just getting out of the door in the morning. We've all got our own definition of success. For some, it will be financial success. For some, it will be a level of independence. It means it's different for everybody. But listening to women who are successful in their worlds, talking about their fears, particularly imposter syndrome, which is something I'm really interested in. That, you know, the most amazing women that we all could look up to have huge moments of guilt. And knowing through that development program I talked about, Springboard, that so often women look at others and say, oh, they've got everything and it must be so hard, but I could never do that because I haven't got this, or this. And actually, that's not the case. We can all achieve the most amazing things if we put a few steps in place. And when you listen to other women being open and honest and vulnerable and explaining challenges that they've overcome, I think it could be really inspirational. And I used to do, I can't believe that when I looked at that the other day, that I used to do that twice a week. I had a bit of a pause when we were really going strongly with the network because of time, but I got back into doing my podcast and I really enjoy that. So I'll be coming and knocking at some of your doors talking about that, because the new series starts in January and it is focusing on reinvention. And I interviewed a woman the week before last, who worked at the World Trade Center, and she told her story. She was not at the World Trade Center on the day in 2001, she was at a wedding at home, and her boyfriend at the time also worked there, and he'd swapped shifts with somebody. But she talked about how she overcame that. Her story to get there is really fabulous. She was a sommelier in their big restaurant at the top of one of the towers. And such an inspirational story about what they've done now. She's gone back home in, I think it's Northeast Carolina state in America, and they've set up a brewery and the different things that they're doing. But it's a really amazing story. And I just love that. You know, I could sit listening all day to people tell their stories, because we've all got such inspirational stories. So as I say, I should be coming around to some of you to do that. I'm obviously, I was thrilled with the MBA. I was also fairly chuffed about winning this award. When I started my book, and I started to run those springboard development programs locally, I wanted as many women to be able to attend the course as possible. And they're quite expensive, and there is a certain level that you have to charge. So I used to go networking or meeting women around, at the time I lived in Bournemouth, around the conurbation, and asking them to, local businesswomen, to support places on the courses, and they would sponsor people. And that's got me ultimately into what I've done over the last 5 years in particular. But it was influential for me, because I did apply at the behest of somebody else for one of the Venus Awards, and was successful in winning the Influential Woman Award. That was a really good night out. So yeah, that was fabulous. I'm very proud of that too. That's me with my Springboard book. Some of you have been on the Springboard program. Some of you know about Springboard. But I suppose that's my real passion, is that ability to know how much potential so many women have and don't already realise it. And that program is really good at getting us to understand what we can achieve with the support of other women, because it's a course for women. Just women. It's written by women, and it involves group work with lots of women. And I know a number of you run group sessions, and the impact of a group of women together. And we've seen that, haven't we? We've seen that ourselves in network meetings. All of you that have been around through this journey with me have watched others that have been, I don't know, really timid and you know, stand up and do your 60 seconds at those face-to-face meetings as they used to be, and women's handshaking at the prospect of having to speak in public for the first time, and watching them develop over the years is just amazing. So yeah, that was been really important to me, that Springboard program. And then in January 27, what happened? We set up Successful Women in Business. I called it something different at the time, but that's ultimately what we morphed into. And that was because I was running a couple of groups for another networking group, and I wanted to do something slightly differently. I wanted us to have that element of personal development, personal professional development. I wanted the support of women. It's great to do what we've just done and to introduce ourselves to each other and promote each other's business. Yes, of course, that's amazing. But I felt there had to be another reason for getting out and going for lunch, as it was at the start, and then ultimately breakfast. When we're running our businesses, you know, women aren't always very good at investing in themselves. And if you can just give a bite-sized piece of personal development when you're going along to a networking meeting, because often we can justify to ourselves the networking to promote our business, and then give some personal development to go along, then I felt that was really important. So that's what we did. And we started in Taunton and in Dorchester. And there are a number of you that have been here from the start and quite soon after that. And then we expanded, obviously, into Exeter and Bournemouth and Poole. We had a spate in the New Forest up at Bridgewater. Yeah, and it was just wonderful. And some amazing people that have supported me in that, in particular, Sarah and Julie, continuing to run those groups when my health wasn't its best over the summer. And then in 2018, a year in, I've always done things for International Women's Day. This is a more recent International Women's Day in 2020, a photo, but we started to run the conferences every year around International Women's Day. And I just love that whole prospect of getting involved in a global issue like support for women, support for other women, raising money for charity. We've raised thousands of pounds for charities over the years. So that's how we started with International Women's Day and our conferences, which led to the Successful Women Awards, a bit more Blossom's amazing work there. And that first year, and for me, that was as a result of that Venus Award. I loved the award, but I wanted to do something that perhaps was more personal to people, that was a bit more transparent in the way the awards were given out. And I know that, Catherine mentioned it, many of you here in the room have been amazing sponsors. A number of you in the room have been nominees and finalists of winners. And I'll never get over, try not to cry now, seeing women standing on that stage receiving those awards, just wonderful. And I've often said I've always wanted to be on the front cover of a magazine. I didn't actually want to be on the front cover of a magazine, but it was always a great opportunity. And so, yes, that's what we did. The lovely Tracy was on our very last magazine, and many of you have contributed to those magazines. You have put articles in the magazines, you've talked about yourselves in the magazines. Those magazines are still available on Issue. There's still a good opportunity, if it's relevant to you, to showcase your business. And again, I put it in the newsletter that I sent out, but I'll put the links in the follow-up email, because you can still use those and you can still read them. And that was such great fun. And again, obviously another shout out for Bloss, because that was just amazing. And she's very patient when I keep changing my mind every 5 minutes. But to have those lovely hard copy magazines. Yeah, so Reinvention as a magazine editor. Who'd have thought that you could learn a skill like that as well? And then just, there are so many photographs, there are so many videos. I put a fabulous video out the other day on LinkedIn that sort of encapsulates what we've done over the years. I could have filled this for pages and pages, but I just wanted to, a love of good food, particularly lovely afternoon teas, amazing women together. Julie Jackson would forgive me if I hadn't put in the picture of the swishing, which was maybe not my best decision. They had a lot of clothes and shoes hanging around for a very long time. I promised Julie I will never, ever do anything like that again. But we raised money for charity, and that was the most important thing. We had the most amazing speakers. But to see those of you on that stage, whether you were sponsoring or whether you were nominated or a winner, it was just great. I really enjoyed that. And for those of you that delivered workshops for a number of those conferences, fabulous. So a quick run through of my reinvention from copper to awards host, magazine editor, head of an amazing network of wonderful women like you. Some tips from me about how you achieve something like that. What's good to remember? Surrounding yourself with amazing people. I put women in brackets because everything I've done has been about women. For newer people here that won't have heard me say this, I'm not anti-men, I'm pro-women. And our single gender networking was specifically about supporting women in their confidence, and seeing their confidence increase, which I have done over the years, has just been fabulous. But there's nothing better than having a tribe of amazing women who've got your back. So surrounding yourself with amazing people, which I have done from day one, has allowed us all to benefit from this. Step out of your comfort zone. I said magazine editor. That's just one of the many things. I am very fortunate that the 30-year career I had as a police officer filled me with confidence. If I'm honest with you, being a part of that Springboard program was what really gave me confidence. I think it's a bit of a cop-out, excuse the pun, to put on a uniform and step out and be confident, because people look at you differently when you've got that uniform on. It doesn't take you long to realise that. And for those of us that have put uniforms on, you can perhaps be something different, and you can, and let's be honest, confidence, you fake it till you make it anyway. That's, most people know that. That does help. But stepping out of your comfort zone, doing something different, Bev mentioned it earlier on, and many of you that have done something very, very different from perhaps a long career. And so many of the women that I interviewed on my podcast show, they had changed corporate careers for something else. Often The challenges around family, it might be health that force them into a decision where I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, but I actually physically can't do this because it's not compatible with what I want to do with my family or other caring responsibilities. It's not always about children. And that's why I think we see so many women doing amazing jobs of reinventing themselves. But stepping out of your comfort zone is really important. What's the worst that can happen at the end of the day? You get up on the stage with your dress tucked into your knickers, maybe. You fall off the stage. It's probably not going to happen. The third one I think is really important. I talk about this a lot. We've run goal setting sessions over the years, but it's so important to ask for help. And it's a bit of a laugh for those of you that know me well. I'm not terribly good at doing that myself, but I know we need to. And most people love to help others. If someone says, could I ask a favor? Could you do this? Unless it's lending you all the money out of your bank account. Most of us love to help each other. Most of us love to see other people succeed and want to be a part of that. So please just ask for help. Again, what's the worst that can happen? Somebody can say no. Most people say no in a very kind and considerate way. They might say no and come up with a better solution. I'm a strong believer in mentoring, having a mentor, mentoring other people. Ask if they're like, what's the worst? No, I'm sorry, I don't have time. Could you suggest anybody else? Ask for help's really, really important. If you don't, you're in real danger of burning yourself out. And then you're not going to be able to support anybody. It's that whole bit about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. You can't help others if you're worn out, burnt out, or anything else. So do ask for help. And don't be afraid to learn new skills. I learned everything about podcasting from an American guy who ran a podcast, it's a bit weird really, who ran a podcast on how to run a podcast. So every episode of his podcast explained to you how you could run your own podcast show, all about the equipment, all about the platform, the hosting, everything. He obviously also ran a membership. And so at the end of it, he'd tell you about his membership, and I've no doubt he got lots of people to join his membership. I never did. I got everything for free. Not only did he do the podcast, he did an online version, and now there's even more free stuff out there. And sometimes I'm sad. I talk to women and I'll never be able to do that. And we put up those barriers. It's just the confidence that we're going to do wrong or we're going to make a mistake. Well, people make mistakes. We do things wrong. Again, it's not the end of the world. So much free stuff. If you can clear a space in your head to take the time to, now there's YouTube videos on everything. There's courses on everything. So many since the pandemic. One of the positives, I guess, is that there's so much free stuff out there. So don't be afraid to learn new skills. But if you are going to learn a new skill, try not to rush in and dip in and get it all quickly. Set aside some time to learn, if you like, properly. And as I say, I learned all about podcasting from that guy. Listening to his podcast, I can see myself now walking my dog up and down, listening to it all, and then going and put it into plan. And I still use the same equipment and the same platform that he suggested. And yeah, it's great. We all have plans. Most of us have goals, dreams with a deadline, I say. If you want to take action on your goals, write them down. But it's okay to change them because the real world things happen. So just before the pandemic hit, I'd started piloting franchises for the network. We'd got 8 groups, 8 amazing women all wanting to do that. It didn't work out. Yes, I am sure there are many successful networking groups that have thrived through the pandemic, but for me, I came to realize that the magic worked mostly for us in the room, face to face. Most of us are big huggers. And as much as this is great, and I love to catch up, and I'll tell you later, we still run a small members club. For me, it's that face-to-face that was the special magic. So it was different, and we've changed, and we've had to change, and that's okay. So if you set yourself goals, if you've told people and things have changed, it's okay. But as I've just said, write down those goals and then tell somebody. It's okay writing them down, and you can have your own secret book. And many of you will have one of my, you can see in the corner, one of my Successful Women books. I've got 100 of those, if anybody wants any, by the way, that says Successful Women on them. Write them down, take some small steps, get those action plans, and then tell somebody. Or tell the world. Do what I did in 2016, when I made a decision that I would do something the following year. So I created a page on Facebook and told the world. But beware if you do something like that, because this could happen. So I think, if I'm honest with you, that is probably the reason I am sat here with a bit of titanium in my hip. That was really hard, but nevertheless, I climbed Kilimanjaro at the age of 60 in 2017. That's me on the left-hand side. There are, I don't know if anybody else has climbed Kili, but there are 3 peaks. That was the first one. And I only got there as a result of the amazing porter that carried my bag and virtually carried me the last bit, because it was really hard. I have asthma. I should probably have thought about that. But it was brilliant. And it's a great achievement. The photo in the middle at the bottom are the 2 guys that had to get me down, because I could not, I promise you, I could not stand up. We virtually skied down the scree coming back, and they had to send ahead for somebody to virtually carry me down. It was quite hard. But it's just amazing to look back on something like that. And it's just a reminder, really, of, I suppose, what you can do if you set your mind to it. Now, not everybody wants to climb mountains, but there are metaphorical mountains that we can climb. There are other things that we can do. And that's really why I called this presentation Reinvention at Any Age, because again, I've supported over the years a lot of women of a certain age. I'm not quite sure what that means, but sometimes confidence goes and you lose the ability to believe in yourself, that you think you can do all these things. And I just want to put it out there that yes, you can. And if I can, anybody can. If I can start a podcast, anybody can. If I can write a book, anybody can. That's not because I'm not being over deprecating there. I just think, without you don't have to have the skills. You can learn it. Many of you have learned all sorts of different things. Many of you have started new businesses and done different things. So you will know this. But this transfers across your life completely in all sorts of different ways. So I think that's my very last slide. Yeah, what next? What next indeed? I shall come out of here to talk about what next. If I can work out how I can get stop share. Yes, stop share. Yay, there we go. So that's my story. And as I said at the very start, so many of you have done so many different things. I'm here if anybody has got any questions that they wanted to ask. But I wanted to just maybe talk to somebody like Julie Jackson, who I've known for a number of years, who I think massively reinvented herself in so much as there's very different worlds. So Julie, would you perhaps just share with others, not everybody knows your story, that reinvention that you did, and perhaps some of the things that you found a challenge or benefit, something like that? Would that be all right?
Yes, absolutely. No problems at all. So I say some of you know me, some of you may not. So I'll just give you a very, very quick, brief background. I started my career in retail banking and did 7 years there. Then I moved on to investment banking, and I spent 21 years working for JP Morgan. I live in Bournemouth. I was originally based in Bournemouth, running various operational teams. So I had lots of people, lots of challenges. I did a lot of traveling with the roles, moving functions, offshoring, etc. And then my very last job was up in London. So I was on the trading floor as a relationship manager, looking after a large number of sort of fairly high profile clients. which had many challenges. So I like a challenge, is what I'm going to say to begin with. That's my first thing. And the reason I left JP Morgan, I was working ridiculous hours. I'm talking, 12, 16-hour days. And I was on the verge of corporate burnout. So I was living in London at the time. Great job, great everything. Money was fabulous, but there's more to life than money. So I left in 2017, and then I set up my own. So I bought the franchise with House of Colour, and in January, or sort of January onwards, 2018, I then started running my own business. So going from being employed to self-employed was, let's just say, one of the biggest challenges. So, at the end of the month, obviously you get your paycheck and everything else that goes with it. And then I had written, obviously, my business plan. Jill, can I just ask, how long do I have before I rabble on for hours?
5 minutes.
Okay, I'll hurry then. I'll hurry. So yeah, so that was really, in terms of a mindset shift for me, going from employed to self-employed was huge. I think the other massive thing was the cultural differences, in terms of being in an environment like JP Morgan, where it is a tough, competitive US bank, which their culture is very much, you perform or you're out, to moving into House of Colour, which I can only describe as day and night culturally between what I was used to and where I went. So that was another massive challenge. I think my key thing around cultures and all of that is you have to be yourself, okay, in all of these situations. I tried to adapt. I would say I overcompensated when I moved into the world of House of Colour, and I'm now back to being Julie and everything that goes with being Julie. So again, be yourself. You bring all your key strengths to the party, so be yourself. Another big challenge, some of you may know, I have my sort of world in a triangle, if you like. So family and friends, work and relationships. So I would strongly recommend, if you're going to make a significant shift, that you have only one of those things out of rocking at one point. If you have two or three all going at the same point, so some of you may know, I recently got divorced, as in the same time frame as leaving the work. So again, that was huge. So that again, through additional, and also then we went through I say it as if it was a 2-minute thing, but we obviously went through the pandemic as well. So there was many things that I was dealing with. So Jill's already touched on plan for the unexpected and make sure you flex. It takes a huge amount of time and effort. Let's be clear, it's, running your own business is not easy. And I think the other thing is when things are tricky, know your worth. So we talk all the time about, discounting and all those things. Remember who you are, remember what you bring to the party, and know your worth. Network is another key thing I've written down. So find your supportive tribe, absolutely. And remember that one of my learnings is things take a lot of time. Networking is fabulous, but you have to build the relationships, and that takes time. So, all these things, when you sit down and write your business plan on day one, year 5, I would build in lots of additional time, having been through what I've been through. Focus on your strengths, okay? And I say outsource your areas for improvement or development. So yeah, don't spend hours and hours and hours doing things you're not sure on. Get somebody else in to help you. Say no to procrastination, absolutely, and focus on the 80-20 rule, which is done versus perfect. So those, I would say, in some very quick summary, are some of the challenges. In terms of what I've gained from what I've done, I would say the words I've written down are life-work balance is number one. Time, I have huge amounts more time now than I ever have done before. Self-care is now a priority, whereas it was non-existent previously. Freedom is another word I've written down. And you're your own boss. So, you know, the only person I have to motivate is myself, which is brilliant. Every single morning, that's all I need to do is motivate myself. And I spend my time, and I think the biggest benefit, I would say, is job satisfaction. So around, you know, I spend all of my time now helping people feel good about themselves, being more confident, and you know that is what I get from, rather than the money and all of the other things that I used to ka-chinging in the background. It's really around, I would say, job satisfaction. So in a nutshell, Jill, that's my summary.
Brilliant. Julie, thank you so much. That's just what I wanted. It's just, I mean, I could have picked anybody in the room, because so many of you have indeed reinvented yourselves. And a hi to Samantha, who's just joined us, who's somebody else that's just happened to have reinvented herself. I'll give her a minute to do a business intro shortly. So Julie, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions or any comments based on what Julie or I have said? Don't worry if you don't have, and there's lots of things in the chat. Thank you all for your very positive comments as well. So you'd have to wave at me if you did. I don't think Tracy's waving. I think she's talking. No. Okay. In that case, my plan is, Samantha, would you like to do a 1-minute business introduction as you're here, my dear?
Well, I can do. Good morning, ladies. Bloody gorgeous to see you all. Some of you I haven't seen for ages. I do hope you're all well. Jill, you're looking marvellous. Look at those lockdown locks, girl. They're amazing. So for those of you who don't know me, I bet most of you do, I'm Sam Acton. My business is Domestic Angels Franchising. So I'm all about helping people to get control of their time, their lives and their money through their own businesses. So they invest in a Domestic Angels franchise. They get the investment back when they sell it at the end of the term. And during that time, they get to grow a business and grow themselves and grow an income and grow all that time that they want to have for their balance in life. And at the same time, they're able to give back to the staff that they recruit, as well as the clients who need their help. So that's broadly what I do. I also have a fintech company called Paxan. Yeah, it's called Paxan, isn't it? Yeah, it's Paxan and me. Just remembering that. So busy with Domestic Angels at the moment. So that's really summarizes it in so many ways. It's a very sophisticated business and yet simple all at the same time. Huge fun, and I look forward to it every day, even when we're starting yet another winter of, can't say that bloody C word anymore.
No,
Who's fed up with it? I am so fed up with it. Like, come on, let's move on. Let's get to next spring. We're all done with that now, aren't we? I think I've got some form of business COVID PTSD at the moment.
Ah, nice.
You know, yeah, I'm sure that is a thing, and somebody needs to deal with it, because, oh my God, it can switch your energies off. But we're here, we're at it, and we must be all on a good footing, because otherwise we wouldn't be here today. And Jill,
indeed,
I take this opportunity to thank you for everything you've done.
Oh, thank you, Sam. That's lovely. Lovely to see you. You come just in time to get some energy from the amazing women that are in this room. There's a few that have had to dip out for a variety of reasons, but it's great for those of you that are still here. We're going to go into breakout rooms. Let's just talk amongst ourselves, talk about if you've reinvented yourself, what challenges, talk about anything you like, talk about Christmas. Don't mention that other C word. It is nearly 10:30. Shall we do 15 minutes, and then that will allow us to come back and just have a quick run around the room about anything else that we want to say or do before the very final swim networking meeting? I'm going to cry. Right, please accept the invitation that will appear on your screen, inviting you to a breakout room. I will pop in when I've made myself a coffee. Ta-da.